many signatories to this. They're basically saying, we've come quite far, stop. We need to rethink the parameters around this. Your immediate reaction to that?
Yeah, so I would start with, like, AI is just an advanced form of computing. So it's like saying we're going to stop development on computing until we can guarantee.
In sort of a writing code perspective, from a layman's perspective.
Yeah, just from it's a general technology that is a tool that can be used for like huge value creation and also by bad actors, right? But if you draw a comparison to computing or the internet, the move is not to call a moratorium on the internet.
Yeah.
It's to develop like safety protocols and be transparent about access.
So you're somebody that's investing actively in AI-related startups. We'll get to that in a second. How realistic is it to ask founders like the ones that you back to just stop? How does that even work? Yeah,
so there's certainly a question on enforcement here, right? Because most of the research that would be related to developing a model more capable than something like GPT-4 is very expensive to do. So the number of labs that are capable of it, of funding an effort like that, is very few, and they're staffed with teams that are very focused on alignment and responsible development. But if a set of, like, largely these signatories do not belong to those labs, and so it's not as if you have people generally at the state-of-the-art calling for a moratorium. You have people who are not part of those state-of-the-art efforts.
Right, they've already done something in the field, and that's why I wanted to have you on the program. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your investment thesis is basically we should be funding and backing those that are working on technological breakthroughs that are not yet solved, right? And putting pause on development kind of goes against that thesis.
Yeah, and we'll fund basic research efforts, but the thesis of the fund is much more on the applied side. And I'll give you a few examples, but to me, it's hard to argue that we don't want to give more people the superpowers that we're developing now. So right. If that is the ability to have any person ask questions of business data in natural language, like Seek, that feels like a useful thing. If it is to decrease the cost of high-quality legal work, like Harvey, that feels like a useful thing. I'm super excited about giving people more creative skills, right? So you have people who don't know how to draw using Midjourney, or people who don't know how to code using Copilot to write code. All of these are democratizing capabilities.
Sarah, I just want to update the audience that we've reached out to OpenAI multiple times, and OpenAI have not responded to our request for comment. In the letter which was written in the petition, which I've got here, I mean, they directly call out OpenAI, so you can see why we're trying to get them to respond. The question is, this doesn't really work unless OpenAI engages with them, does it?
It does not, because they're ahead, right? And I think, like, this is a nuanced point, but alignment, or the idea of, like, let's make the AI do things that humanity or users want, it's very intertwined with, like, advancing capabilities. There's not really a way to make the models more governable if we don't understand their capabilities, right?
In the petition or the letter, they basically talk about the idea that powerful AI systems should not be developed until we're confident that their effects will be positive and the risks are manageable. My question to you, say you had a founder proposal or deck hit your desk, and how on earth would one quantify or codify those two targets?
Yeah, I think, again, like, computing and the internet are really good analogies, right? Okay. I think there are absolutely real risks, and ones we already see today. Right? Disinformation, use by bad actors. Like, I'm a longtime cybersecurity investor as well. Like, people use the internet to do bad things. That doesn't mean, like, no internet, right? Or I don't think that's the conclusion most people would draw. The other risks, I really care about access and also reinforcement of bias. But the thing to do is to address these concerns in, like, a open and transparent way, not to call for a halt to development.
You know know of quite well many of the signatories to this letter, to this petition. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised by any of the participants?
I would say I genuinely believe that there are signatories who care about democratization of access, because I think a monopoly structure for advanced AI capabilities is good for no one. But I think the most cynical read of a letter like this could be that it's a strategic competitive move so that people can catch up, right? And some of the signatories have been on the wrong side of a technical, like architectural revolution in favor of transformers, which are it's sort of the fundamental architecture that's making these AIs work so well.
You and I have discussed, and on this program we've discussed where we're at with generative AI. And from a consumer's perspective, I can go on ChatGPT or Bard and I can ask questions and get relatively detailed and informed responses. There's much more to generative AI than that. And I wondered which areas you think we should, in the first instance, really be focused on, for example, in the legal field, and areas that you're interested in.
Yeah, again, like I'd probably put like some of the areas we care about into sort of new skills capabilities and then new knowledge, right? So example, as you described, would be new skills is giving people the ability to code, to draw, to create video, to do legal work. New knowledge, I think, is even more interesting. So you've seen fundamental advances in, for example, the life sciences around protein generation, protein folding. I think the idea of reducing the cost to deliver a new drug to less than $2 billion a shot feels quite important to humanity.
That's a very specific example. How does AI help us do that?
Yeah, without getting into too much of the technical detail, there are tasks within the drug discovery process that are basically approached by the industry in very expensive experimental ways today, and being able to get better understanding of biology and chemistry with these models makes the process of drug development potentially much cheaper.
You are a venture capitalist, but I know that you work deeply with, and have done for a long time, with the founders that you've backed in terms of the operation of their business. You're research driven. I know that you read a lot from the world of academia. Who should be driving this? You know, Elon Musk is a signatory. He's reportedly started his own startup.
Right.
In the field of generative AI. It's very messy right now in terms of the leadership in this field.
Yeah, I think like in the end we should have people from academia, from the state-of-the-art research labs, like a more inclusive discussion, including like nation states. Like it's very hard for me to see a governance framework that matters in the end that does not include a international nation state participation.
This has been a quite tense and serious conversation because there are risks that we're concerned about. When you woke up this morning before you knew about this initiative, how do you feel about where we stand with momentum in this field? Actually, most of the conversations we've had have been very positive in recent weeks and months.
Yeah, I'm just genuinely very excited, right? And it's not that I don't see the risks. Again, longtime cybersecurity investor, people doing a lot of bad things with the internet as well. But my waking up experience today was my 5-year-old daughter saying, "Make me a three-headed Cerberus unicorn dragon." Right, and the reason she believes that's possible is like we play with.
You mean using a generative AI tool?
Using a generative AI tool. She doesn't know those words yet. She's 5, but the idea that she can create these images and tell a story using her creativity with all these new skills, I think, is quite inspiring.
You had a decade at Greylock. Just tell me really quickly about Conviction.
Yeah.
Because this is a new initiative for you.
Yeah, so as of last year, I started a new venture fund focused on early stage AI. I think it's the largest value creation opportunity we're going to see this generation. And it's a very immature field, so the early stage focus and being able to understand, as you said, like the translation from research is our focus.